하나가 된 도시야. 이제 시작이야. 세계의 평화가 이곳 대전에서 시작돼.
Hello, everyone. Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. Welcome to this second stock-taking session of UCLG's Learning Forum, where we will be focusing on our localizing methodologies. As you will know, we will be having interpretation today, so please feel free to use the interpretation channels in English, French, or Spanish, and throughout the session intervene in whatever language is more comfortable for you. As you know, our Learning Forum is the dedicated platform for all of our members and partners to share their experiences on learning methodologies, and for us to collectively engage, discuss, and share how we are managing learning processes that will contribute to our network's priorities. As a community of practice, this space is for active deliberation and help us shape the future direction of learning globally and as a community. In this second session, as I mentioned, we will be focusing on the process of localizing global agendas, following the first session that many of you attended, which focused on peer learning. And to kick off this session, I would like to invite our learning director, Sarah Hoflich, to give us an introduction to what do we mean by these localizing global agendas and some of our key work in this area. So Sarah, welcome.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you and count on you, because of course, with this journey we are going for is a collective journey, and we can only be strong if we work this all together. And we hope that localizing is another, this second element of big inspiration for our learning community, and for also making UCLG and the associations stronger in the field of capacity building and learning. So I would like first to remind the term localizing. So we use localizing since actually, I think more than 4 years. It's maybe 5-6 years when the global agenda was defined. And localizing as a term, if you look it in the dictionary, it means where is a forest fire, for example. We localize a forest fire. But in that case of localizing, we are now really a big step ahead, because we said, okay, the global agenda cannot be done without local governments. And then this localizing where is a forest fire happened. And indeed, the studies say so much a global agenda is only possible if we have a lot of fires in the communities, in the local governments, and the local governments are directly responsible for so many policies. And this journey is quite successful. I think it's largely adopted by all stakeholders, how important are local governments. And today with localizing, we are also really engaging a lot of bilateral and multilateral dialogues and activities. So the global agenda is truly ours, and localizing them, we in particular will now show, which we refer to in the learning, but for UCLG generally has been an enormous impact inside the organization, and also UCLG has made an enormous impact, in particular in the UN. So I will show you a PowerPoint very shortly to give an idea what we are talking about. Give me a minute. Okay, here. Presentation. Now you can see you see the screen? Okay. So we are as we said, the global agendas. There are several. The main and still the most important we really align most to is the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, but of course climate agenda, resilience agenda, and many others. I will pencil some of them are equally becoming relevant, and we work around them. In our learning department, as we can say, we have, of course, now a group of highly skilled professionals in UCLG working on learning, and the localizing came a little bit to us as one of the areas where our members said, okay, you report a lot what we are doing, but how should we do, and can you also use our materials so that there is more training and learning around them? So we started a little bit later, and we designed what you all know, the modules of training for trainers. So we train trainers because the trainers are the ones who are our focal point in associations, in networks, or in cities, and look at how they can help their communities or their cities or regional governments to localize. So we started with the SDG, I think 6 years ago. The first module was about the introduction, and we have seen a lot has happened since then, a lot of awareness raising, wonderful campaigns. We hope we can hear a little bit more from your side today about this, but this introduction is still valid. And the module 2 is the territorial planning and the SDG. So this is a lot about alignment, about what cities are really doing, and how is the policies and planning cycles, how they change. And also this is now 7 years after adopting this agenda, we see that the local policies and the local planning processes are really changing. And I think we will also listen about an example from South America here on this. Then we have the third module, which is the monitoring and reporting. This is one of the big works UCLG has been doing, and to collect the reports. But of course, to do reports, this requires an effort. To whom we report, how we report, and that's why there is a module as well. And the module 4 is on decentralized cooperation and the SDG, which is again goes into another field of city-to-city cooperation, of local government cooperation. And of course, there is a lot to do since the foundation of UCLG, we stand for local government cooperation. So we need to help to structure this, and the module deals about this, to really enable all our members to undergo good cooperation projects. The other big agenda we have been localizing is the resilience agenda. The resilience agenda is mainly based on the Sendai framework. So again, another global agenda. And in this, why did we localize this one? Is because since the beginning, it had the target E, as we always say. The target E means local government have to consider resilient plans and strategies. And of course, this was very highly inspired of the Asian region, the ASPAC region. We had here also colleagues helping us to do this first module, and the same as in the SDG agenda, also here for these modules, we first did the fundamentals. So what is a little bit, what is resilience, what is governance, what is the role of the different actors? Different actors, we of course go community, local governments, regional government, associations. And so this is all very well structured here. And we then went into the second, which is a little bit similar to the second module of planning, but this goes really more into urban planning and the resilience strategies and actions. And all this module work is important. We have a lot of authors also with us, and we tried that these modules are not done from one head only, and they are very nurtured by our own agenda. So our own agenda, of course, the first one in awareness raising in particular, we have done a lot of videos also since a lot of years, and we hope at sometimes we have, before the global agenda is closing, we have the 17 videos to explain what each SDG means. These are very important. We have, for example, here you can see the SDG 11 video has 42,000 clicks. So it is not only because it's explanatory, but it's also a tool to show again what local governments are doing. So we suppose that many of our followers and others just find it inspirational and well structured. They are all very short, of 2 minutes. And I say this because you are the learning community, and of course, you can make use of these resources. Also, another inspiration in our modules is the work of local practices. Here is an example of one of our committees, but also the OEDP and the Metropolis Youth Platform. We have several platforms where you can find practices, and these practices are all now aligned with SDGs. So it's even when you see here in the culture, there is a click, you can click on goals, and then you will find practices responding to the goals. And this is the same in the other platforms. And it is, again, an important menu to make up from here, for example, training courses or evidence, build your own building blocks towards a localization. Then we have, of course, the work of our colleagues in the research team. They were the first one, together with UNDP, which is also the partner to all our SDG work, to test and to use the term localizing. And this was, I think, a milestone in 2016, when it was clear that the localizing is really a powerful element of the global agenda. And since then, the colleagues in the research team have not been stopped working on reporting what local governments are doing. So they always, every year to the HLPF, they prepare a report. They show what is the evidence in the field. We can here observe a lot of change in how the SDGs shape in local governments. And of course, this is now a big pack many United Nations organizations use to continue the agenda. And of course, this knowledge is not only research knowledge, which is there for evidence, but also we now go with this knowledge to give guidance to local governments and to local government associations. And these guidelines are developed further into training material again. We also look and take up the work of the Global Task Force. And as I was saying, the localization is not limited to the SDG. Here you can see the Global Compact of Migration, for example. This is a big work. UCLG has been really into it. We have a big learning project on migration. But now we also take this work and do learning material. So we have a mock in preparation, a massive online course. And I'm sure in the next meeting, which is on e-learning, we will also hear a little bit more about this. So how do we translate our big field of evidence of local collected work into training and learning material? And the Global Task Force, which is the main body, is also, of course, there are in the Global Task Force members who are strong, for example, on the climate agenda. We in UCLG maybe are not that strong as C40 or ICLE, but again, here also we form learning material and we articulate with the United Nations, mainly reminding that localizing is not only take the agenda, load it down, but nurture it. The local government are inspiration, they have learning resources, and they have to be more acknowledged. And also they are interested in activate with their communities. The Local 2030 is another initiative the United Nations office has established in order to articulate knowledge and tools and resources available. So this here, my last slide, and just it's an announcement. The next session will be on e-learning, but this is another opportunity for us to take up all the knowledge in the network. So we know that you are doing a lot about localizing. We know you do a lot in with the cities. We do courses, you do courses. And the Learning with UCLG platform is an opportunity for all to use it and to spread this knowledge and make it globally available. Thank you very much. This is from my side.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for this introduction and like the many meanings that we give to localizing in our network. And I think, like, before opening the floor, we would like to hear from as many voices that are here as possible. So we would like to do a little Mentimeter exercise to kind of give you the opportunity to share kind of your first insights before we open the floor. Fernando, could you share the Mentimeter? And we will be using this code. So if you have your phone or computer browser, please go to menti.com and use the code 20084557 to join this consultation. Let's give a few minutes for everyone to join. And I'm also going to share the link directly in the chat if you want to go directly to the consultation. Okay, and I think we can start moving to the next slide. We wait for you all here to all of the ones who haven't joined yet. So as Sarah was mentioning, there's like kind of these modules that we have developed on introduction, planning, monitoring, and decentralized cooperation. So what aspects of localization have you particularly, or your city association, been doing learning or capacity building on with your members, with your cities, or within your cities? We have a lot of planning, awareness raising, governance and cooperation. I'm sure there's a lot of monitoring and reporting as well, but maybe many of those doing work on monitoring and reporting are pretty busy right now with the HLPF coming up. We have 23 people. Okay, I think we have around half of the room already here. Okay, so but a lot of planning and policy alignment going into the implementation. That's very good to hear. And a little bit spread out throughout the other ones. So let's go now to the next one. And this is kind of something that we will probably be going back towards throughout the session. And we will be asking this on each of these aspects. So on awareness raising and kind of introduction to the SDGs, what are the key lessons or challenges that you have confronted doing capacity building and learning on this? And we will give here some time for you to reply and share some of those kind of key lessons or challenge. What have you find inspiring, difficult? Políticos no suficientemente involucrados. Lack of interest in global agendas at the level of municipal staff, making that connection. Sustainability, peer learning, city-to-city cooperation. I guess those are key lessons of cities learning best from other cities. The campaign is easy, but the follow-up of what to do with that awareness is difficult. That's a good point. SDG is not seen as an all of society approach, but rather a government approach. Interesting, since it is very much always introduced as a universal agenda, and it is integral approach. But would like to hear more about how this has come out in your particular region. Different needs of regions, definitely something that we as a World Secretariat know very well, of how it takes time to adapt it to the different regions, the different parts of the world, and within like each region, also within each country's legal frameworks. Lack of competences outside immediate areas, frequency change of functionaries. That's like, yeah, awareness raising kind of never ends. Local government associations as disseminator, that's a really good lesson. Communication tools, lack of recognition of leadership, cross-cutting approach of the agenda, change in policy, not as a way of framing all policies. That's a challenge, and also I guess a lesson of at the same time. Learning by doing. Okay, that's pretty good, and we will go back to these ones later on. But let's go now to okay, let me just read these two long ones. Let's go back. Sorry, Fernando. If we can, I don't know if they will show up. Yeah, great. hacer que los conjuntos de actores involucrados, la relación directa entre la localización de los Sdgs y los cambios reales en la sociedad. Yeah, so transferring that awareness into actual action and changes. Not knowing that the activities already being done are relevant for the localizing agenda and the benefits of aligning them. Okay, that's good to see. Yeah, we always say that it's more about aligning things that are being done, but yeah, kind of doing that and then moving forward from that aspect. So let's go to the second question, which is in planning and policy alignment, where many of you have been doing learning activities. So again, what key lessons or challenges you have confronted? I know some of them were kind of brought up already in the first question, but like more into this concrete aspect of planning and policy alignment. I'll give you some time. Yeah, these are not so easy questions. But this is a space for reflecting about them and sharing those reflections later on. So we have here the long-term perspective, having the reluctance to truly empower local authorities, I guess, depending on also this on the context and the country. But yeah, like I think we see this often with the VNRs and how it is kind of just including them, but not necessarily engaging and empowering them and changing those frameworks. Not easy to create broad support, lack of synergy, council business as usual, difficulty of conciliar intereses, of like bringing together the different interests, procedures, and times. Local needs and priorities not reflected in SDG framework. That's an important part of localizing. That is not only, as Sarah was saying, bringing it down, but also kind of pointing how it's not necessarily aligned with how things are done at the local level. Coordinate with politicians' agenda with the strategic planning, again, like long-term and kind of short-term interests here coming up. Elected people planning and other actors planning, different multi-level institutions doing things in the same territory. Getting to know the context of the communities to be able to apply planning processes to their realities. Yeah, so like more like this participatory planning aspect and understanding kind of community planning processes. Counting with citizen participation constantly during the whole process. Definitely a challenge that many local governments probably confront. And the transition to implementation not always ensured. It's like, and also an important point to come up that will come up in the discussions. Okay, let's go now to the next question on monitoring and reporting. What are the key lessons and challenges you have confronted? And I'm sure here that it will come up again, like the aspect of the SDGs not necessarily aligned with how things are measured or done at the local government, regional government level. The lack of data at the local level, certainly a difficult aspect when you're trying to monitor. BLR still seen as an additional burden or as a luxury. A lesson of being more inclusive on these monitoring processes and more participation. RBM principles. Does anybody know what RBM stands for? If you can help me here.
Results-based management.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Results-based management.
Okay, thank you. Lack of city-level data, clear engagement of partners, data. Okay, yeah, data is coming up pretty strong here. But yeah, the importance also of that monitoring to make sure that the planning process doesn't stop there, but it actually goes from paper to reality. Monitoring seen as an imposition and not as a key part of the process. That's definitely an important challenge to confront. Lack of local capacity to do monitoring and reporting, either lack of technical or human resources and sources of data. Okay, so yeah, I think these are things that many of us confront when looking at monitoring and reporting aspect of localization. Let's go now. Let's using SDGs as development cooperation to be reported by developing countries, cities, not by donors. Okay, interesting. Let's go now to the fourth and last question of this Mentimeter exercise. And I hope that this has already bring up some ideas of what you would like to discuss and share with everyone here. And while you're thinking on this fourth question, which is on governance, decentralized cooperation, this one is kind of pretty broad. So you can put here, I think, other things that haven't been included in the first three. Because it's not only our fourth module on decentralized cooperation, but also multi-level governance, which is something that is brought up a lot in the localization of the Sendai framework. So any kind of lessons that or challenges you have confronted in this area. And while you're thinking that, yeah, just wanted to highlight that our Secretary General, Emilia, couldn't join us for the opening of this session, but she will be joining later for the closing, because I think it was in the agenda. So there has been a little bit of a change of a schedule, but she will be joining us later on today. So we have here sustainable governance, lack of coordinated government approach, increased South-South cooperation as a lesson. Again, like cities learning from each other, triangular cooperation, inclusion of all relevant actors. Many governance frameworks are inimical to holistic approaches. Yeah, like I think what it was mentioned in another of the answers is kind of getting out of this silo mentality. It's hard when those frameworks are already pretty well established. Lack of resources and need of technical capacity. Without encouragement and support at the national level, localizing is difficult. Yeah, I think, yeah, learning and capacity building involves a lot of advocacy as well on those challenges that have been identified. To have governance, we need direct relationship with civil society, lack of leadership to lead the process. SDGs are a great opportunity to improve whole of society relations and to drive whole of government to more sustainable and integrated policies. Yes, yeah, it's like a key lesson. I kind of the ideal that I think many of us embrace, but how to bring this to reality is probably what we will be discussing today. Lack of coordination and actors seeking visibility, definitely. When we talk about cooperation, it's definitely an issue. Donors easily connect SDGs, national government, not necessarily. Okay, that's very interesting. Challenge with engaging external partners, move from discussions to concrete joint initiative to give substance to the SDGs commitment. Okay, yeah, I'm really hoping we can also, as a network, talk about this further later on in this session. Okay, that's great. After this, we will probably keep this Mentimeter open for you to answer at your own pace. Now it was while we were sharing it, but hopefully if you have any other ideas, lessons, challenges that you want to raise, please go back to the same link and answer the questions at your own pace. Thank you very much for participating. And now, while having looked at all of these different steps, we have 30-40 minutes to kind of have an open discussion on how do we do learning and capacity building on localization of global agendas. In particular, we would like to focus on how the modules and the training of trainers methodology, working with associations, with sections, and trying to reach the city has worked for you. Get to know how do you foster learning on localization with these or other methodologies, and how do you see them as effective, or what challenges have you confronted? And I know it's always hard to break the ice and open the floor, but if you can help me, I would prefer anyone who wants to talk to raise their virtual hand, and we will have 2-3 minutes each person to share their insights, anything that they want to share, and we will, like, the briefest, the more concrete you are, the more we will have the chance to go back to do those things that you want to bring up and hear from others on those aspects. So yeah, for this first question, I think I will go with, how have you used the training of trainers methodology, and how is it working for you? So if anyone would like to share their insights on the use of this training of trainers modules, please raise your hand. How they have been adapted or used in your region, your city. Okay, Martino, thank you very much for breaking the ice. And yeah, you'll have 3 minutes to share any insights that you want at this point.
Hi, Juan, and I hope that you can hear me well. Hello, colleagues, and everyone that is connected. So I have a particular history with the trainings of trainers because I with the methodology, because I was part of the UNDP, as Sarah mentioned, the UNDP team that was at the beginning involved, now with UN Habitat, still with the UN. And I think that Sarah mentioned very well the fact that the work that UCLG as a whole and the learning unit specifically has done around localization has impacted a lot the work of the UN. Personally, for the teams that have been working on localizing the SDGs, the language, the narrative, the network, the methodologies on localizing the SDGs that the UCLG has developed has become a reference point. So we do really, we are inspired by them, and we do use all of the products that UCLG is leading. Of course, UN Habitat is partner of all the models, but let's not hide ourselves behind the finger. The real drivers of this process is UCLG and the learning team. So we are grateful to be part of this exercise. On the methodology and the modules, both the one, let's say the paper and the onlines and the mock and everything that Sarah has presented, we have been using them a lot in the context of different like bilateral projects with cities, but also in the context, hopefully, also of future global projects. And the beauty of the modules, as far as I see, is their capacity of being adaptable to different contexts. So they can be trainer of trainers, they can be bilateral, they can be really used in many different ways, and so on, because they really provide a basis for them to be reworked and adapt to the context where this is happening. For example, we have translated part of it. Our actually Habitat office in Bangkok has translated part of them and used them for a specific workshop. Specifically, the module 2 on planning now is taking more and more, let's say, gaining new momentum with regards to the part specifically of planning and strategic planning. One of the challenges, maybe one that we have been facing, and is sometimes the different levels of the audience with whom we are interacting, no? Because sometimes you have local and regional governments or local representatives coming from different contexts, and some have wide knowledge about the SDGs, and they already use the global agendas in their planning, in their awareness raising, and some others have absolutely no clue. Which certainly, and I'm pretty sure that you have experienced the same, makes sometimes the interaction a bit more difficult, because then it becomes maybe some gets bored because they have already learned about the processes, or some others are a bit less interested to speak because they don't know what they're talking about. So we were actually discussing with Claudia, that was joining, that has joined us training in Turkey as a kind of feedback after the mission. And one of the things is, okay, how do we overcome this challenge? And it's very difficult because it's super like providing targeted support to every local and regional government is so complicated, and we need so many human resources to do so, and not only technical and financial, but really human, that it's a question that for the moment, we haven't found a solution for, but maybe something that this group can reflect upon. Over to you, colleagues.
No, thank you very much, Martino. And yeah, that's a very good question to bring up, and that I'm sure others can share some of their insights on this, on the different levels of knowledge, capacity, even when the Sdgs and the training of trainers, the modules already have been around for almost 5 years. It is an ongoing work, and that will continue. So how to manage that and keep everyone engaged, regardless of their level of knowledge and experience. Fernando, please go ahead. I don't know if you want to react to this or bring other things.
Sí, hola, ¿qué hay? Muy buenas tardes a todos. Agradecer a CGLU esta invitación, Sara, y a todo el equipo que estáis trabajando y a todos los colegas. Bueno, en principio yo creo que el planteamiento que se ha hecho y sobre todo lo que hemos podido observar de la experiencia Menti que hemos tenido al principio y que establece retos comunes y retos globales a los que nos enfrentamos todos. Nosotros desde la Federación Latinoamericana de Municipios, desde FLAGMA, estamos atendiendo a esos problemas de una forma alineada a los objetivos de CGLU, sobre todo en todo su trabajo de localización de los ODS y de implementación de la agenda a nivel local, en definitiva cumpliendo esa máxima de la agenda global de abajo arriba, ¿no? Retos como por ejemplo la culturización o la socialización en los propios objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Hablábamos o veíamos antes falta de conocimiento, falta de implicación. Probablemente queda todavía muchísimo por hacer para que una parte importante de la sociedad civil fundamentalmente conozca exactamente qué son los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible y cómo pueden trabajar o colaborar en su implementación para el desarrollo, ¿no? La obtención de datos locales, de datos territoriales locales, lo que no existe no se puede medir. No es lo que no existe, es lo que no se sabe que existe. Por lo tanto, nosotros desde FLAGMA, ahora comentaré brevemente, estamos con un proyecto precisamente para poder conocer esos datos que consideren los propios municipios como un insumo para conocer cuál es su realidad y sus necesidades. La propia participación de una parte importante de la sociedad civil, de los jóvenes, como baluartes importantes para el desarrollo de la agenda, o realmente que se produzca una intervención multiactor transversal. Como consecuencia de todos estos retos, desde FLAGMA iniciamos dentro de unas semanas un proyecto que me gustaría compartir con todos vosotros y vosotras, que es un proyecto denominado ODS Municipal. Es un programa formativo que impulsa la Federación Latinoamericana y que en definitiva son proyectos que miden sobre el territorio los ODS. Y los miden creando 17 mapas digitales en los municipios con la colaboración de los jóvenes locales, a través de un curso de capacitación virtual de 240 horas. Lo que pretendemos es la participación directa de los jóvenes para la realización de estos mapas, inicialmente sobre fotografías aéreas actuales, que como todos sabéis reflejan fielmente la realidad municipal, y obteniendo con ello un diploma certificado internacional en GIS, en ODS y en gestión territorial. Se trata de un programa que integra distintos proyectos para municipios y que es gratuito para la gobernanza, es gratuito para los gobiernos locales, por lo tanto está financiado de manera externa y que ofrece una fotografía real de las necesidades del municipio. En definitiva, lo que va a permitir, que era lo que estábamos comentando con anterioridad al gobierno local, establecer políticas basadas en evidencias territoriales. Sin duda alguna, la estadística general, la estadística nacional hoy alcanza diversos problemas, entre otros la desactualización o los problemas que tiene el gobierno local, que simplemente desarrolla una actividad, digo simplemente porque realmente la propia alineación de las políticas públicas a los objetivos no es suficiente. Tenemos que ser capaces de detectar, de localizar cuál es la realidad para poder generar políticas públicas, como digo, alineadas a esos objetivos. En este momento, la situación actual de este programa, que está completamente alineado con el trabajo que desarrolla CGLU desde hace años, hemos firmado 133 acuerdos en 10 países, tenemos registrados en nuestra plataforma para iniciar esa capacitación a más de 9.000 alumnos y esta capacitación queremos dar comienzo en el próximo mes de agosto. En definitiva, se trata de un proyecto, y termino, recurrente, es decir, lo que queremos es poderlo replicar en municipios medianos, grandes y pequeños, y fundamentalmente queremos obtener datos territoriales que sean de utilidad y que puedan suponer el incremento y el desarrollo de actividades productivas y de empleo en los municipios. Por lo tanto, simplemente lo que quería comunicar es esta experiencia que estamos desarrollando y, como digo, perfectamente alineada, Juan Carlos, a los trabajos que desarrolláis en CGLU desde hace ya varios años. Gracias.
No, muchas gracias, Fernando, y nos suena como una experiencia y una iniciativa muy interesante trabajando con la academia y con los jóvenes como que acercándose de diferentes formas, tanto como a través de los gobiernos locales como de la academia, como de la juventud. Y seguramente que habrá personas que también te puedan compartir diferentes experiencias que puedan alimentar ese proceso. Entonces, muchas gracias por compartir. Recuerden, si levanten la mano si quieren compartir experiencias que puedan ser fructíferas para lo que nos están compartiendo, o responder a otras preguntas como la que hizo Martino al principio. Salim, now I would give the floor to you. Please go ahead. And remember to try to keep your interventions 3-4 minutes so that we can go around and have some reactions.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Before answering to your direct question, I would like to briefly reflect on what has been said, particularly about the introduction of Sarah. I think, in UCLG MEWA, we are really experiencing that localization of the global agendas brought some added value to our organization, to the UCLG network. Like, we realized that since like 2017 or 2018, when we focused on localizing SDGs, we realized that we are working more closely with our members. And of course, more closely with the United Nations system. So I think that brought some real added value. And in terms of the TOT modality that we have been using, actually, when we first started our activities on localizing the global agendas, we used some sort of hybrid methodology. We made use of the UCLG methodology, the learning methodology, but we adapted into our realities, let's say. But only one time in 2019, just before the COVID outbreak, we organized a full-scale TOT activity in Tehran. We tried to produce some trainers within the framework of Asian Mayors Forum. So we thought that since we are based in Turkey, we are based in Istanbul, we may not have direct reach to the Iranian cities. So we thought AMF can do it. We organized this TOT, but the outcome, well, it was a very successful TOT, but the outcome was not like we produced 10 or 15 trainers in Tehran. But what we did, just like we did in Konya, we produced some sort of localizing champions or localizing leaders, which are very influential for us because they are the ones who will follow up the agenda. Not necessarily they will train other people, but they will make sure that the agenda is followed up in Iran. So just an update, next week we will be in Tehran for preparing the first VLR in Iran. So 2 years ago, we were there for a training, and now they are in a position to prepare their VLRs because now they have a community to focus on this. So I think it may take time. It may not necessarily bring us new trainers to train other people, but that kind of methodology definitely works. And we have this proof that we will have next week in Iran. So thank you.
No, thank you very much, Salim, for sharing that. And I think you bring kind of really good points in terms of the training of trainers methodology and how it actually works. And it's not necessarily always, we train someone, they do something, but it takes time. So we have to accompany. And I think often we don't even realize when some people from there go out and spread the knowledge that they share. Like that's usually often we don't see that, and we see more kind of the hard work that we need to do to continue these processes. But it's really always good to kind of go a few years later and go back and meet people who have already the knowledge from previous experiences, previous collaborations, and even like changing institutions. thank you very much for sharing that. I think that it would be nice now to hear maybe now from our capacity and institutional building network, because they also have been doing a lot of work on awareness raising, on alignment, and around the SDGs, also including monitoring. So I would like to invite Jessie to share some insights from the work on CIB, as well as the association in Europe that are doing this work.
Thank you, Juanca. Nice to see you all. Indeed, the Capacity and Institution Building Working Group of UCLG has been actively involved in various SDG activities, well, I think since the adoption of the agenda. We have mostly been involved in the reporting as a CIB working group, reporting in the sense of helping associations in Europe, but also in other continents, to report in separate reports to the UN, which we call voluntary subnational reviews. So aside from the national reviews from member states, as you know, maybe associations can also produce their own voluntary subnational review. This has been in fact, a product or an idea from UCLG, which is by now quite successful. We have done multiple rounds of VSRs, and we are in a process right now with, again, 10 associations who are writing their own report and presenting it to the HLPF in July. And not only is it important to show the UN at this event that a lot is happening at local level through these reports, it's also an important learning experience between associations on how you can write such reports, how you make sure you collect the data from your local government members on what is being done in your country, and how you can then best present that in a report. So it's been a useful learning trajectory, and we are together with UCLG Learning team seeing how we can also create more of a learning community around this topic and make this community bigger and bigger, where next year we will again do the VSRs. But how do we keep this community together of people who have this experience? I also wanted to mention that we just decided that we will do some information sessions on VSRs for those associations who want to do this next year. We haven't planned them yet, but they are likely to take place already over summer. So if you want to investigate writing your own VSR, let us know. And then last but not least, I understood, Sarah, you also wanted me to say something on what my association has been doing. Myself, I work at the Association of Cities in the Netherlands. And we have also been very active in the Netherlands on the SDGs. We have global goals, we call them the global goals campaign. 1/3 of all the municipalities is now a global goals municipality, or calls itself a global goals municipality. And we have numerous good practices and examples on how to localize the SDGs in your own Dutch city in this case. And more we also see that the Dutch municipalities are making the link with, well, including SDGs, also an international partnership, so more SDG 17, which we think is important, because it's great if you localize the SDGs to your own community, but it's important to also remain the international element and aspect through SDG 17 in particular. And I know that many other European associations, including the Flemish Association, for instance, have also done a great piece of work on awareness raising and communication. So there are lots of materials available also on the CIB website, which I will put in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessie. And yeah, no, it's always nice to hear from the work of those associations, because yeah, we often hear from bigger cities doing BLRs and everything, but through the associations, it's nice to see how they are gaining the interest and kind of being able to engage in smaller cities in the localization of the SDGs and those partnerships with other ones.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good intermediary report between the voluntary local reviews and the national reviews, because local reviews only capture one city and national reviews only capture the national picture, whereas association reports can show what all municipalities or a very large part of the municipalities in the country are doing. So it fills the gap in between VLRs and VNRs in principle.
Thank you very much, Jessie. And now I would like to kind of open up a little bit more the question. So we were focusing a little bit more on the training of trainers and the modules at first, but I would like to hear from other methodologies that you are using to localize global agendas or do learning and capacity building around global agendas. Well, the case of CIB is kind of one good example where it's accompanying the process of creating BSRs and doing learning and capacity building around that, and from there developing different products. But if there's other members and partners that would like to share other methodologies that you think are effective, it would be great to hear from them. And yeah, feel free to raise your hand so that I can know. If not, yeah, I will. Yeah, okay. Okay. I see Nicolas was raising his hand, his actual hand, and then Anita, I would give the floor to you later. So Nicolas, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you all for sharing your experiences. I would just like to take 2 minutes of your time and share our experience with actual learning conferences. And I think this is very important because we do spend a lot of time in conferences, and I think we will be going back to face-to-face conferences very rapidly. And I think it's important that we break the mold of just having talking heads at conferences and your usual panel discussion, but how to actually focus on the training and learning dimension during a conference. And our experience with that at the Guangzhou Institute for Urban Innovation is to focus on the processes. And I think this is one of the problems that we're facing with the reporting on SDGs, is because the emphasis is so much on hard data that we forget that it's very hard to learn from hard data. It's very hard to learn from indicators, but you can learn from processes, and that requires a storytelling mode. And I think this is very important. So we have been focusing our attention on basically coaching local authorities to focus much more on not what they have done, but how they have done it. Because it's very difficult to actually transmit a knowledge gained from what you were doing, but you can transmit the knowledge from how you have been doing it. And they're simple questions. They're questions about what are the difficulties that were encountered, how were they overcome, what worked, why do you think it worked? If you could start over again, what would you do differently? So they're very simple sets of questions, but again, it's very important to get local authorities into that mindset. Their normal mindset is to focus on outcomes, on results, rather than on the processes. So I just wanted to share that with you, and that's one thing that we do in all the conferences that we're involved in. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Nicolas. And yeah, no, it was really kind of challenging as well, but also very interesting to create this video based on the 1U methodology of how to tell the story and how to tell about the impact of a practice. And even when, well, like I think many of you already know the video, it's a 3-minute video, but the work that you actually do with cities is for several months leading into the 1U award selection process and results. And like I think you have a lot of knowledge there of how to break that idea of just focusing on what has been done and not how to tell it, and the different kind of journey that gets into that. So it would be really interesting to bring that farther to the rest of the network and bring those lessons. Anita, please go ahead.
Thank you, Juan. So I think last time you have my colleague Pierre Martineau Lagarde already spoke a little bit about city-to-city cooperation and our different guides and work on that. So I'm not going to repeat that, but just to say, first, I'm from the ILO, for those who don't know. I'm heading a unit that's on emerging and special partnerships. And we have done a lot of work on mainstreaming SDGs and the 2030 agenda also at the local levels using some South-South peer learning methodologies. I put the link in the chat. I could share it, but I think I noticed nobody's sharing, so that could take a little longer if I share the screen. But basically, I would give you some tools and practical means on how to integrate decent work into sustainable development, how to look into cities, how you can do peer learning at the local level, what are the different, challenges with the UN reform agenda, also with the COVID, and how we can have some concrete steps to work better as municipalities, regions, and integrate this decent work agenda, but also all agendas. Of course, we are the ILO, so we are promoting decent work into the national frameworks and also city frameworks, municipality frameworks. And finally, looking into how that can be integrated also into the UN cooperation frameworks. So basically, when we're dealing with this kinds of learning on SDGs, it's very important to be able to know what are your targets, your principles, what are your objectives, which groups you're working with, and how to better integrate, and who are your allies in terms of your multi-stakeholder partners. So in our case, in the ILO, we work with employers and workers organizations and governments, local governments, but also, of course, then all the special partners that include academia and others. So this material is also basis of the material of the new course that is launched by UCLG. So we have been working together with UCLG on this localizing sustainable development work together with other UN agencies and together with Sarah and Fernando. So thanks for the invitation. And I think that's in a nutshell a little bit what we're doing. If you need a little demo, I'm here and I can always do it, but I know that I'm very vigilant about the time and that lots of people are very keen to share their experiences. Over.
Thank you very much, Anita. I know it's great that you bring up also the idea of city-to-city learning and decentralized cooperation, because as it was raised during the Mentimeter exercise, also cities learn better sometimes from each other. And it's not only about training of trainers, but bringing those cities' experiences to other places. It's a great way of doing it. And I don't know how many of the community here knows, but like we also partner a lot with ILO. They have a really strong training institute that works on different issues, not only decent work, although this has been kind of a focal area, but we've done training on resilience as well. So it's kind of it's very interesting partnership that we have, and we hope that we can continue to develop that into other topics. I would like now to give the floor to Javier and then to Jose Luis. So Javier, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos. And thank you also, Sarah, for inviting me to this meeting. My name is Javier Sanchez. I work in Catalonia, in the region, and I'm the head of planning, monitoring, and evaluation for the development cooperation. So that's specific policy. As maybe you know, we are also partners with Jesse, CIB, and we have this agreement, and we get together with some part of UCLG to discuss specifically on this mutual capacity building on technical issues connected to institution building, and also we're friends with the learning team, and we enjoy cooperating and doing things together. Our own experience is not as much as in the implementation of the modules as we were discussing before, but rather on how to use the SDGs for development cooperation, which, as I'm sure you know, is a very specialized public policy. It's a policy that is different in countries that are organizing their resources in order to provide and to finance official development assistance, and countries who are receiving those resources and using them for their own development. So this also a policy which is not completely doesn't work completely in the same manner in the different countries where it's undertaken. No? So 4 years ago we were setting out to see how to organize our own development plan with the SDGs SDGs and mainstreaming the SDGs. And there we discovered that although SDGs, of course, are about development, it's not easy to use the SDGs to rethink your development cooperation. I think there's a very strong emphasis in the SDGs as a tool for domestic governance. And many of the things that UCLG is doing now is helping their cities and other members organizing their domestic governance in a way which is more sustainable and more connected to the SDGs, and then going to New York or using those different reports to explain how you're doing this. But SDGs are also about external relations. However, it is not clear how to use the SDGs for external development cooperation. So 4 years ago, we undertook this. We saw it was not very easy. We saw that there were different ways in which to use the SDGs for development cooperation. And just last year with Platforma, which is another project we are participating with together with different partners, and it's financed by the European Union. We organized something like a learning process in order to compare how the different Spanish regions were facing their different policy planning processes by using the SDGs. And we came to very interesting conclusions. I can actually, this is in Spanish, but we have a report, and I can give you the reference here on the chat. No? And then we discovered a few things. First, that principles are very important when mainstreaming SDGs in development cooperation. Is not only about or giving policy guidance and setting up objectives which are connected to the SDGs. It's also important to bring on the SDGs as a series of principles that give you coherence to your development cooperation, meaning relations with your stakeholders, the use of different financial means, reporting, whole of government, whole of society, policy coherence for development. So there were many things which were different from setting the targets themselves, that were also useful. All those Spanish regions saw SDGs as an opportunity by using those principles. And also that there's an interesting challenge when you have to report, because that report, as we know, is rather a domestic moment when it is national or city governments that are explaining what happened in their own territories. So if you're using resources in order to provide support for development, you cannot actually report on those. It is the country you are cooperating with that should be reporting. And that's a tricky issue that is well dealt with. It's easy to deal with at national level because you have more leverage. And you can say that Morocco is reporting on something that is depending on your support, but it's very challenging when you have very little and different projects of 20, 30, 40,000 euros each. It's difficult to say that you are responsible for something happening in your country, in your partner country. So this is a big challenge, something we should be discussing. Also, Sarah and the team are now rethinking on module 4, which is development cooperation. So there's maybe something that we can help with on that account. Thanks very much.
No, thank you very much, Javier. And I know that there's the policy papers or policy briefs on this regional aspects of decentralized cooperation that would be definitely interesting to include these reflections from the European aspects on how to do it and linking with the reporting and monitoring aspects. But also very important what you mentioned, that it's not necessarily only about localizing each of the SDGs, but using those principles as part of the planning. I would like to give the floor to, I think, 2 more persons before we need to switch into the next part of the session, looking into Daejeon. So please go ahead, Jose Luis, and if anyone else wants to share something, please raise your hand. Adelante, Jose Luis.
Muchas gracias, Juan Carlos. Un cordial saludo desde Andalucía. Y un cordial saludo también desde todo el equipo de FANSI. Como saben, somos el Fondo Andaluz de Municipios para la Solidaridad Internacional y efectivamente la cooperación descentralizada es muy importante en estas cuestiones que hoy nos traen, que estamos tratando, la cooperación de ciudad a ciudad, pero también la cooperación entre las redes de gobiernos locales con otras redes de gobiernos locales. Esa es casi una especialidad de la casa, una especialidad nuestra en FANSI, y quería comentarles alguna experiencia que hemos tenido en concertación con CGLU, en concertación con PNUD y por supuesto con nuestros socios en los países que voy a comentar, que se trata sobre todo de Cabo Verde y de Mozambique, en todo el ámbito de la formación para la alineación en los planes municipales de los ODS y el camino hacia la Agenda 2030. En el año 2019 iniciamos en Mozambique un programa de apoyo, también siguiendo los esfuerzos del PNUD en su programa de plataformas, pero un programa de apoyo para acompañar la inserción de los ODS en los planes municipales, en los planes comunales de desarrollo, con diferentes actividades que tenían que ver con intercambios, con pasantías, con asistencias técnicas que pudieran dar cobertura y soporte a los esfuerzos locales en esta dirección. Nos atrapó la pandemia, nos atrapó el confinamiento. Y entonces intentamos generar, con todo el aprendizaje que ya tenemos por CGLU y que tenemos nosotros mismos a través de nuestra estrategia ODS local aquí en Andalucía, el generar un sistema de formación, un programa formativo que fue online, de manera que pudiese contribuir a reforzar todo el camino que ya se había hecho y que no se podía paralizar en la pandemia. Concertamos este programa de manera muy participativa con la Asociación Nacional de Municipios de Cabo Verde, con CGLU, con PNUD, y montamos un programa formativo online que ha sido muy exitoso, pero que además ha tenido la peculiaridad de que hemos podido triangular con otros países africanos desde la primera experiencia, una primera edición del curso netamente vinculada a la realidad de Cabo Verde, que como saben es un país insular y que esto tiene un peso también a nivel de cohesión y a nivel de coordinación en el ámbito del trabajo de los ODS, pero intentamos triangular con otros países africanos. Al tratarse de un curso que se hacía en lengua portuguesa, nos daba la oportunidad de aprovechar el recurso para que tanto en Guinea-Bissau como en Mozambique, fundamentalmente en estos dos países, se pudieran apropiar de toda la metodología, de todos los conocimientos y de todo el nivel de participación altísimo que hubo en estos cursos. Entonces, ha sido una experiencia muy interesante porque no solamente hemos construido un tipo de metodología muy cercana, en donde en cada momento se ha dicho de qué es lo que vamos a hablar, pero también qué destrezas, qué capacidades y qué conocimientos iba a adquirir la gente, porque también lo hemos dirigido a aquellos sectores que, habiendo participado o formado parte de las plataformas, no habían recibido una formación directa como determinados cargos electos o determinados cargos técnicos, es decir, intentamos democratizar y extender la formación a todos los sectores de los municipios, de los territorios que podrían ser extremadamente valiosos para la consecución de estos planes municipales alineados con los ODS, y finalmente hemos podido adaptar ese recurso, hemos aprovechado ese recurso para una nueva adaptación, en este caso a Mozambique. Aterrizando en su realidad, aterrizando en una participación local muy importante y poniendo en contacto con muchas personas, tanto de Andalucía como de Brasil, como de Portugal, como de otras partes que han participado, y agradeciendo enormemente la participación que ha tenido CGLU en estos programas formativos, porque ha sido muy directa y muy bienvenida. Entonces, bueno, los cursos además han sido transferidos a estas redes municipales, son
terminar en
parte
30
de
segundos,
sus
te agradezco.
recursos. Gracias.
Gracias. Bueno, muchísimas gracias, José Luis. Y no, es súper interesante escuchar de experiencias, además en otros idiomas que no son oficiales al Secretariado Mundial, y es algo en lo que dependemos mucho de nuestras secciones y asociaciones y miembros, pero que siempre vemos ese interés, países de habla portuguesa, países de habla árabe, y para eso estamos muy felices de contar con todos ustedes, que incluso no siendo su idioma oficial están dispuestos a trabajar en esa cooperación con otras ciudades y territorios. Now, in order to close this last session, I would like to give the floor to Puben for one last intervention on this stock taking on our localization work.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Greetings to everyone. I've already put in a few comments on the written chat. I think there's 9 points around critical success factors. But I just want to highlight 3 from my perspective, and being involved with the localization process through with UCLG from its inception. I think municipalities are still stuck in the rut of aligning strategies and so forth to SDGs, and that's the level and the extent of localization. I think that's a point of concern, because as you go through many of the municipalities and engage, and you ask them about localization, and they say, listen, we have aligned to the IDP, or Integrated Development Plan, and we've integrated that in terms of the SDGs itself, and it's stopped there. I think that's a serious challenge. Localization doesn't just mean alignment. Alignment plays a part in the entire localization process in terms of defining gaps and so forth. So I think we just need to pay a bit more attention and create a lot more advocacy around SDG localization. And it doesn't just mean alignment. I think that's the first point. The second point is, as municipalities, we have the ability to actually encourage and enforce change. And the ability to do that is through our budgets. So how do we integrate the SDGs into our budgeting process or prioritization process becomes critical in terms of actual localization, because you are realizing assets through an investment through your capital budget implementation and so forth. So maybe one of the opportunities that we should look at and then promote is the localization of the SDGs through the budgeting process. I think the last point that I want to raise in terms of the 3 points is awareness and capacity building. I think the need to create that single narrative around SDG localization in the administration is critical, because your administration tends to last longer than your political administration. And therefore, having to hear the same or that single narrative coming from various leaders in your administration, and I'm not talking about political, becomes a key voice of advocacy at all levels within the city. So whether it's the administration and technical level, the political realm, or even the citizenry as well, it becomes very critical that there's a single narrative that emerges at a technical administrative level itself. I've covered the other points in the chat. I'm glad if the members could actually add to that, or actually even give us further comments on it. Thank you, everyone.
No, thank you very much, Ruben. And also, it's great that you are kind of already connecting to the next point of how do we move forward and what should we be prioritizing. So thank you very much for those reflections that I imagine they come from your work in Durban, but also from the Committee on Urban Strategic Planning, which could also take this kind of moving from alignment to actual implementation and prioritization forward. So thank you very much for sharing that. And so now, already kind of moving into the next session, which is how do we move from here to Daejeon and beyond. I would like to invite my colleague Mariale to give us an introduction to what it will be the Learning Forum and kind of learning opportunities in Daejeon. And from there, Sarah would moderate the rest of the session on that moving forward. So Mariale, please go ahead.
Thank you, Juanca. Hello. To all the Learning Forum partners and members. It's very good to have you here. I wanted to talk about the Congress, and for a start, you already know that the Congress is going to be in Daejeon from the 10th to the 15th of October, and we are waiting for you for sure there. But I wanted to let you know, or to kind of focalize on what are the opportunities for this learning community within the Congress. So for starters, I'm just gonna show and share with you the program of the Congress. I don't know, colleagues, you tell me if you can see it already. Good, can you?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Also, I'm sending, because I know sometimes it could be tricky to see in this pages, so I'm also sending it to you by chat, so you can also access the page and see it. So as you see, the Congress program is starting to be full. We have a lot of activities, but regarding the learning part, we are having the Learning Forum session, official session on day 2, October 11. And we are having around 5 hours just to focus in on what we want to do in the learning agenda. So this is for you to see. As you see, we are also having the Local for Action track and the networking hub. And on those spaces, there are also learning activities that you might have requested or are organizing within these 2 other tracks. So I just want you to see the general picture of it and to remind you that our learning special day, it's going to be the 2nd day, 11. So that's also so you can book your flights and be sure that you're there just before. So we are starting the Congress with this powerful learning forum. And what is this learning forum? We have the session on the 11th, but we want you to see and to feel that the learning forum is not just the session in Daejeon. It's a process that we are building together and that we started building with the UCLG retreat in February. When we got together, we got to do the fishbowl, we got to see our challenges and to debate among ourselves and to start also reinvigorating and making our learning community stronger. So we started in the research in the retreat, and now we are conducting these stock taking sessions where what were you doing here? We are mapping your challenges, we are mapping your solutions, we are taking into account what you want to share. So this is bringing us with the lens of the methodologies to the special moment that we will have in Daejeon. What would happen in Daejeon? The session, as I said, is day 2. We have 5 hours to dedicate to this joint effort of developing our learning agenda all together, to see each other, to also see what we are doing. So it's a moment to reflect, to inform, to inspire each other, and to enable ourselves to think out of the box on how are we advancing on these learning methodologies, right? So this Daejeon moment will also give us a reflection to think strategically. And when I think about thinking strategically, is thinking about how the learning activities, the learning actions that your organizations are doing are actually contributing to this bigger part, or this, I wouldn't say bigger, but this part of the political actions. And this is done by what? But also contributing to the Pact for the Future and to the different thematic parts that are being developed in UCLG. You know, the Pact for the Future with the different access. So now we are in the stock taking sessions. We are thinking about methodologies. We're thinking about localizing, we are thinking about peer learning, we are thinking about e-learning. But now when we arrived in today, John, we are going to start thinking with these methodologies, we're going to start thinking with the lenses of the Pact for the Future, how my organization, how what I'm doing in terms of localizing is going to help or is going to contribute to the Pact for the Future for people, how this localizing part is going to build on or can build on this part on planet or either on government. And the second part that I think that is very important for this and thinking strategically in this moment in Daejeon is for us to share our evolution, to share the evolution as a community that is forming and that is building up together, but also the evolution of every single thing that you are doing in your own organizations and institutions, all that you are developing, what you want to share with others, or also what you feel that you maybe need some help or some assistance to multiply your actions or to do those actions better. So as I said, is to see our evolution, to have a strategy to become or to be more and a stronger community. So we come up out of Daejeon having in mind our strategic learning agenda for the future. So this Daejeon moment is a big moment, but it's not the end. It's an open window or an open door for us to develop the learning agenda moving forward. So I hope I give you a little bit of enthusiasm to come to Dijon and work with us together. Thank you.
Very much, Maria Alejandra. I see here many faces smiling and taking it up. I think it was extremely motivating, and please, we would like to take up some ideas here, no? Because there is an idea already in the chat, and I will read it because I think it's a very good idea of Hendra, who cannot speak because his connection problems. So he said it would be great if in Dijon we can conduct a policy debate or introduction session on SDGs linked decentralized cooperation, inviting members to present their experiences and needs to improve the decentralized cooperation, especially in development country. So that is an idea, no? So this we do this stock taking here as today, and of course, why? Because in Dijon we would like to really consider us more as a group, as a big pack, no? Because you all bring a lot of elements into it, and of course we do. This is not the end in itself. So with this group. To evaluate policies, as Hendra is saying, to look a little bit how we can inform least developed country, not leave them behind, and also because they have partners that are attending. And I think it's a very good idea. And as Maria Alejandra was saying, we have 5 hours, and we now need to structure these 5 hours to be informative, but not to be just a sum of sums. No, so that's why we do this stock taking before. So not to say, okay, now you will speak what you have done, and then you will speak what you have done. We need to find a common sense for all, what also you want to take home from these sessions. So another point Bernadia was making, for example, and Hendra also, is we support members of ASPAC that are coming and want to do even training activities. This is out of the Learning Forum, the 5 hours, but of course we can look into this because many of you are interested. So I don't know if there are some more ideas, in particular ideas that go a little bit of connecting, no? Connecting between each other, and not only the individual initiative. We also will, of course, give space that individual initiative can be seen, because not every individual initiative will have the opportunity to build a long session in the Local for Action Hub. But let us know if there's more ideas from your side. I don't see hands raised. In our Congress.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. If someone has some idea about methodology for the session, to how we can work with what we have, what we are discussing about localizing, for instance, or peer learning or e-learning, with what Mariale just mentioned about the Pact for the Future, and how we could think of the activity there face to face, and if you have some suggestion of methodologies, for instance, for activity that could like group or integrate or synchronize different initiatives to the Pact for the Future. That's a curiosity I have, if you have some ideas on that.
Yeah, maybe any regional section that would like to make a point. And I just wanted to clarify when I said your own initiatives. No, so we have, of course, other tracks, the Local for Action and networking. And these are processes where some of you have applied for sessions. This process is closed. And in the Learning Forum, what is now important, that we really connect. So we make that point emphasizing on how we connect all the initiatives. And of course, you are welcome to bring your initiative, because we see that UCLG, we work as one, not only from the World Secretariat. So if somebody of the community would like to make 1 point, I see Nayat here from our African, she wants to talk. Thank you, Nayat.
Thank you very much, dear Sarah, dear Maria. Hello, everyone. I'm very, very sorry if I didn't join you from the beginning because of another meeting focusing on decentralized cooperation, indeed. So for me, we need to build on Durban Forum first. I think it was an excellent initiative from Learning Department, and an excellent global gathering. So for us, it's if it's on localizing the SDGs, we need in a first segment to see where we are, the stock taking, as you mentioned. And this will be an opportunity not only from local or regional officials, but any actor or stakeholders involved in localizing SDGs, to rise and to share what is the institutional arrangement, the challenge, the innovation, how we are feeding the report for policy in UCLG, etc. And the second segment should focus on the best practice. So here you need to bring on board the 7 regional sections to share this best practice and innovation on localizing SDGs. And I'm sure they are existing from around the world. And we give the floor to the mayors, to the presidents of local regional governments. This third segment should be this aspect of building a global methodology. So we need this, I don't think if it's standards or guidance or guidelines or a booklet. I like this word of booklet. That should be common for everyone, but you give us the opportunity, as we used to do with the model, to adapt to each specific context. So this is what I'm seeing for our involvement, engagement, and participation to the Global Learning Forum, for which I wish a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nayat. This was very good point. And of course, this is true. We count on political leaders, and that is the stock taking in this way is a preparation towards this articulation. Thank you so much. And please also consider the question Juan Carlos has just raised. So what spaces or activities you think you also would like to see? So first, which you would like to show, and others you would like to see when you come to Daejeon, so that we make really an interesting learning forum for practitioners. Of course, making that point, we also don't forget we have points on monitoring, on peer learning, and on e-learning. But I think a lot will come together. Here's a comment of Betty. I think she likes very much this marketplace suggestion, and says that it can be explored, community auditing, profiling that links to what a speaker talked about, and referred to as territorial data, maybe managing this data for policy development, analysis, and monitoring. And I think the points coming up, they definitely speak on 2 points. One is on the methodologies, and the other one is on the next steps for the localizing project and the localizing process. Data, indicators, financing, these are 3 critical words we have to digest, and also to think about how to include it in the existing work. And I think we have still Martino with us. He can make a point here, because also the future work beyond Daejeon is looking a little bit in this updating. So in our lessons learned, there will be like a second generation of work around our modules. Martino, would you like to take the floor?
Thanks a lot, Sarah, and thank you again, colleagues, for this fantastic presentation. We are looking very much forward to joining you all in De Jong. And exactly, looking forward, I think this updating and stock taking and gathering new experiences to feed into the modules is what we are aiming to do. Specifically, UCLG and UN Habitat are joining hands in a couple of global projects that will bring us to work in, well, 14 countries. I'm not saying 14 cities. We have pilot cities in the projects. These are UN DESA and the United Nations funded projects. So, but we really see and look at them as kind of seed projects for us to also build a new wave of learning processes along with UCLG in this idea of updating what is already there, which is already excellent. Of course, since, correct me if I'm wrong, 2016, 2017, when the module 2 was, or 2016-17, if I'm wrong, was published, things have evolved a lot. Planning specifically has become, you know, the new rule on localizing. If local and regional governments start the localization process, most of them look at new strategic planning, a link to the SDGs. So we have so much material to build on and to update these products that are absolutely still very much relevant. And of course, part of these projects and activities will also look into the monitoring of the SDGs at local level with a new wave of VLRs, VSRs. So we are also looking at module on monitoring and how we can make it connected to the reality of the local reviews and local reporting at local level, which is literally exploding. So this is definitely what this, let's say, the second part of the year will look like after summer, and hopefully the years to come as well. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Martino. And here you see we have this opportunity. We have now talked a lot about SDG. We also will remind, we have here our teacher, Sid Blanco, who is also, we will offer a course with Diputación Barcelona on SDG localization this year. So there are the things that continue because they were successful, but of course others we will take up. We have not talked much about the resilience agenda, which is also a very, very important agenda we localize. And we hope that in De Jong we can use a little bit the opportunity also to look on around this. We have our main partner is also placed in Korea, so we look forward to have this agenda also playing out. But I think you gave us a lot of ideas, so we will do an overview with the points Maria Alejandra was mentioning. So how we see the pact for the future, which maybe now is new to some of you, but how we see this as a point to better connect. Now, the pact for the future is not replacing any of the global agendas. The pact for the future is our own ship. We want to go, and we have a lot of leadership around it. And I think the work is just, this is like an internal alignment we can do with the work you are doing. But of course, this does not disconnect any other agendas. It is just another way of feeding, and also do a lot of what we have seen, policy information we take out of the learning, because learning is, again, like localization is not we take a desk and a student and we load a lot of material to them. It's on the contrary, we learn from the desks of the administration and of the people who are managing the cities. And I think that point Ruben was mentioning, it's not only the community on awareness raising, so it's inside. So probably we will have to revisit all the work and to update, and you are welcome as actors. Please, if you feel that you can do anything around this module, or also if you feel that you can do some input in formats which we can then later deliver and load up into our Learning with UCLG portfolio, you are most welcome. I mean, we are really proud to have such a strong community that builds together what is UCLG and the agenda for localization. So thank you very much. Emilia has sent me an excuse. She couldn't make it because she has been stuck in a meeting with Diputación Barcelona. Now we have live meetings, face-to-face meetings, so they are not as punctual as the virtual ones. But we are leaving you on time. Thank you so much, colleagues. We will come back with a good overview, and we hope to see you all in Daejeon. Also ILO, FAMSI, UN Habitat, and all the partners who have been talking to us.
Thank you.
And UNESCO. Yeah.